Hi and welcome to the Distology Debrief. So on today's podcast, we are joined by Hayley Roberts, our CEO and founder of Distology, and Simon Minton, who is an advisor in the cybersecurity space. So we'll get a bit more into what you've been doing in your career over the last 10 years soon, because 10 years is really the crux of what we're going to be talking about today. So want to spend a bit of time looking back 10 years from when Distology was founded, and then we're also going to spend a bit of time looking forwards 10 years and making a few predictions into where we think the space is going to go. So we'll see what wild and fun things we can get into there. But to start, let's look back. So Hayley, I'll start with you. 10 years of Distology. So firstly, congratulations. Obviously, I've been part of the journey, but a lot more recently. So yeah, can you just give us a bit of a sense of what you've been up to over the past 10 years and what you've learned?
It's all been a bit of a blur, really, if I'm honest. It doesn't feel like 10 years. And I know I always say 10 years, we're just getting started, and at certain junctures that's how it's felt, really, because there's lots and lots of learnings. We've had lots of, resculpting and developing the business and the technology side of things. And I think if I look back to the heady start of Distology, it was, you literally would work with anyone. When you're a distributor wanting to work in a certain space, you'll work with most technologies. So I was working with a vendor, and they were essentially our first decent sized vendor that came along. And it was great because it opened the door to different partners, and you're sort of building your partner base. But anybody who literally had £5 in a packet of crisps in the market, we'd say, yeah, we'll stick you on the website, no problem. It wasn't quite that bad, but we were still trying to craft where our lane was, I suppose, where the lane was in terms of, what we did as a business, not just the value stuff and the customer service side, but the technology side. That's taken a longer time to get right, I suppose, and to find our groove.
Absolutely. And in that time, where would you say, I suppose, your biggest learnings have been, or what are any mistakes that you've made, or, I'm sure you'll say it's all gone perfectly.
All perfectly. Yeah. Just got on a conveyor belt and off we went.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, there's been a million mistakes. There's been a million lessons. There's been a million failures, really. But I think, ultimately the main groove through Distology for the last 10 years has been just that hardened desire to want to do better and to add more and more value in the industry we work in. So whether that looks like the technologies have either stayed or left us or come back again, and we've changed the partner landscape, the core message is good customer service, good culture, driving to always do better. So outside of that, of course, we've had vendors that have not worked, and we've taken a huge amount of risk on, not necessarily because anything went wrong, but just because it wasn't the right timing for them in the market. We've had, partners trying to sort of, negotiate deals where we've had to lose on things. So lots of different things. And one of the biggest things I think in terms of lessons learned is the people element. And I think across any business, in any industry, the main problems you're going to get predominantly are people, customers, unfortunately, and your payments in, payments out. So and people super important for us because we don't have a product, we're a services business, right? So and it's the people that you work with, even if they are a technology business, that keep you working harder or keep you motivated to do more. So I think the people that work for us, with us in the business, that's always been a learning curve. Who's going to shape the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years, and that's changeable. Because the size of the organisation demands more from those individuals. So that's a big lesson. Yeah. And it's constantly evolving. We're constantly having to be agile. So there's loads of lessons.
Absolutely. And I think when I, from myself joining and looking back at the technology landscape, particularly for Distology, I think it's fair to say that identity has always been that thread that has sort of started you off and that we've just continued to build on. Simon, I know you've been a big part of our new technology strategy and sort of what we're looking at moving forwards, of which identity continues to play a massive part in that. Can you just talk a bit to how that came to be?
Absolutely. So I'm not a techie. If ever you've decided to listen to my waxing lyrical about all sorts of things, it's not technical. Which I then decided to do a TED talk on why you don't have to be tech to work in tech, which is true, very, very true. Yeah. And you'd laugh at me in the early days. You should laugh at me now probably, that I don't know enough about the security landscape. What I tend to focus on is that whole, what's new, what's good, what are the customers saying, and that's really how we got into identity. So It was driven, and I'm talking sort of 8-9 years ago, driven by a partner coming to us with a customer problem. They were looking for a single sign-on tool and a wider remit on customer identity, but it was going to be a big project overall, workforce and then customer. And it was a case of, do we work with anyone? We haven't got anybody that we work with then. We looked at a couple of options, and I went and approached the channel director at Okta at the time and said, look, we've got this, it was a huge opportunity. What do you think? And he went, great, actually, we haven't got distribution, we could look at it. And that's kind of how it started. We had to really force ourselves into, and this was Okta that we were working with, we had to really sort of force ourselves in, because they were a bit like, hold on a minute, what does that mean? Distribution? That's good. We don't even know whether we like partners yet. How the hell are we going to add another layer? So it was a lot of waxing lyrical about the channel. It was about soapbox moments about how that might work for them. And it was more by luck than judgment that identity became a thing. But we love the technology, and it's hard not to, because identity is almost very familiar, because it starts with the human, right? And when anything's human, we all get it. When it becomes too, admin heavy or too complex and technical, people lose interest, right? I certainly do, because I'm not technical, and but even I think anyone would, right? So it's a good base to start your security proposition on, and more so as we've grown, that identity has become bigger, and hopefully you'll agree with me, Simon, if not,
100%.
please say. That security then starts to have a real impact, but you've got to get the human bit right, you've got to get the identity of users right first, and manage that from a secure proposition. So that's how that started.
Great. So I suppose carrying on that thread then, and back to the 10 years, and like I said, you've done a big piece of work with us on the tech strategy for moving forward. Do you want to give a bit of a view of what you've done over the last 10 years? I know it's been quite an eclectic mix things.
Of different things.
And sort of how we've then come to work together, and so, again, moving into then helping us on that tech strategy.
Yeah, so my background, I'm a technologist, and I've worked in vendors, I've worked with partners, and more recently with investors, VCs and private equity, doing a lot of landscape mapping, what's coming through. And I know you're interested in the new vendors coming through into the market, what's changing, what's the market dynamics, what are customers doing. So the last 2 years I've spent a lot on go-to-market, working with vendors on their go-to-market, working with their partners on strategy, and working with investors of different flavours and sizes on looking at what's happening in the market, what are potential opportunities for them in the market. There's lots of M&A coming up, and I think also in the identity market there's going to be a big shift, which I'm sure we'll talk to later. My background is I've brought a few US companies into Europe. I have worked with an analyst firm, small boutique American one, and I've done a lot of go-to-market, so working cross-corporate strategy, M&A, go-to-market, business development. So I've kind of done a lot of different things.
Absolutely. So very well placed for these types of conversations.
Busy as well, isn't it, the market at the moment? In the last few years, security, I think, has always been prevalent, but do you feel it's busier now?
I feel like, cloud was a paradigm shift, and now we've got AI, which is another paradigm shift, and identity is going to be a core part of that, as well, data security and other things, which maybe have, we've seen email security change as well. The platforms change, the architecture change, the world changes, and security needs to keep up. But it's going to get really interesting now.
Yeah,
good.
Great, and we'll get into that shortly when we start looking ahead. So we've talked about the past there, so we've looked 10 years back. But in regards to the present, so I've already mentioned we've done a big piece of work from the tech strategy point of view. But from your perspective, Hayley, how have we got there, and why were we at this tipping point to need to refresh that?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, we've had a great 10 years. There is no question about it. And I mean great in the sense that we've learned a lot of lessons. We've had great successes. We've won some lovely awards. And the team has been really bolstered, redeveloped, re-engineered, bolstered again. And I think that one of the things that was the missing component for us was very much around the technology direction. So we're now wonderfully getting approached by lots of really good vendors who are very credible in their technology fields, but we can't just take everybody on. We want to help products go to market because we're super passionate about channel, of course, and we love the go-to-market element of it. We've got a great amount of knowledge in that, and I think a lot of vendors that are looking to actually succeed generally will have to use channel, so we want to be part of that instrumental journey for them. But we can't just have a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of that. And so and we didn't have the technical capability internally to know what the markets were saying. We needed an external person, which is why Simon, we've been working together. So I think it got to be very, very obvious that we were wanting to craft our story and stay in our lane of what elements of cyber, which is a massive area, are we focused on. Given that identity was a core offering, and everything else can fit around it, what made sense? What was market ready? What were the customers needing? Not just 10 years out, 5 years out, but actually what are the real problems today? What are the technology areas that we can offer? What are good? What are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? What are our partners telling us? So we needed a lot more intel and input there, and that's where we want to go with the business now, that we are staying in our lane. We have some core areas of strategy and a taxonomy now that Simon's created, and we're running with that, and we're developing the team around it. So that's been, for me, a huge boost for the next future journey of Distology, that we're not just a distributor that does well with channel relationships, but actually we are experts, and we're building a knowledge base around some core areas and working really consultatively with our partner base. And that's why you've developed what you've done, Simon. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've been able to use that as well, haven't we, in regards to, as you'd mentioned, some of the bigger names that we talked and those established brands, but of course also focusing, that you just mentioned before, on those disruptive technologies coming to market to allow us to give that balance to our channel partners. So to that point, I don't know if you could just give a bit of an overview of sort of some of the work we've done together, and the rationale, I suppose, behind those key areas that we're now aligning to, and where that came to from your research and your knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was done collectively. We all did it, didn't we? But I think
you would say that, Simon, but I'd like to say that I contributed on the technical side, but I did not.
I think from my perspective, it was just being able to overlay a taxonomy across, cyberspace is so big. So how do you create a taxonomy which makes sense to most people that look at it, non-technical people, partners that want to understand what are you building, where can I align on that journey? So we created that. We did create that collectively, that taxonomy, and then you start to look at, well, where are the hot, like I'm also an industry analyst, so I can see where the markets are heating up, where they're slowing down, where there's going to be a platform shift. We've seen identity move from kind of being a compliance function now to very much being security conversation for various reasons. Credential abuse being number one attack vector these days. So you've got to have identity as part of that, and every customer now is looking at, well, we want some best of breed. We've got platform, we might have Microsoft or whatever vendors that they've got, but they're going to need parts. They're going to need different vendors, and ideally, if you've got 3 or 4 vendors that can come together that can solve a problem, I think that's useful for the channel to understand, and it's great for customers to go through that. So I think we were looking from the beginning at creating taxonomy that can then bring adjacent technologies together that solves bigger outcomes.
I think it's education as well, isn't it? I don't think the ideal would be that they buy all of it and it's great, and the old Pareto law kicks in and it's like winner. But actually, it's education of what could it be a conversation point with, if they have in their stable already a similar technology partners. So
and this is always the point, right? It doesn't need to be our entire stack. No. It's making it relevant to them. Absolutely.
Yeah, as much as that would be the
dream.
The dream. Yeah, it's not necessary, but I think it's been an education internally for our internal marketing where we are as a business, hasn't it? I think that everyone's kind of got the pennies dropped quite a lot, actually.
I think for us as well, from an alliance perspective as well, it's allowed us to really look at and drill into our non-compete side of the portfolio. It's a big part of our value. It's something we really stand by, as we all know. We don't carry competing vendors, so to be very clear on those areas that we're focusing on and those that we're not, right? Because we're not an everything to everyone distributor. I think for me personally, in my role, it's made a massive difference now for that due diligence process. So again, we're not wasting anyone's time, and we're not wasting our own time, and I think we have a much more structured and productive conversation with vendors in the first instance.
I think it's more candid. I think even though every single vendor, and you've probably seen this too, Simon, that they will love their own technology areas and think that it's the best thing since sliced bread. And it is in their world, right? And do you know what? Brilliant. But sometimes radical feedback that's candid as hell is actually well, not necessarily ugly, but maybe needs a tweak. I do think that's super important, because we are too concerned with with being too nice, and too nice just deludes people, right? I think if you're pretty much honest straight off the bat, then you might go away and look at your wounds, but you can certainly adjust and change things, and we can help with that, right, from go to market. If your technology doesn't work, you're out.
Yeah.
That's it, as raw as it is.
Yeah, and it's getting their customer an ecosystem of feedback, and it's doing that due diligence up front.
Yeah.
And that's valuable both ways, isn't it? But from the vendor perspective, I think we've seen it a lot as well. They like the due diligence and they like that candid feedback. Because again, we say it a lot, don't we? It's not a no, it's maybe just a not yet because they're not ready. So I think it's allowing us to get to that point with them and for them much quicker. So it's definitely been a really valuable.
Yeah. And often it is a case of timing. I don't know if you see that it's almost a bit too advanced. If you look at some of the technologies that we work with, OpSpot's a great example of that, as in others, that it's been around for a while, but until the market's ready to really grab hold of it and run with it, then it's sort of bumps along the bottom a little bit until all of a sudden there's that uplift.
I think, you can look at a lot of examples, like CyberArk kind of went along for a long time and then suddenly took off as
absolutely. We'll look at Wiz, and there's 100 examples, isn't there, of technologies that do that. It's great.
Great. So thank you for that. We have touched on the tech strategy there then and the work that obviously we've been doing as a team. Could we now just spend a bit more time going into that in a bit more detail? Hayley's already said she's not the technologist in the room, and neither am I. But in regards to what we've come up with collectively, we've got the 4 key sort of solution areas that we're focusing on that we've built together. So could you just talk a bit to those and why we came to those conclusions?
Yeah, I'll start with the why, because over the past 10 years or so, we've seen big changes with digital transformation. Every organisation is going through digital transformation. What does that mean? It means everyone's building out clouds, they're building new applications, they're hiring developers, they're actually building their own software rather than just consuming software that was built by someone else. They're creating their own software and having to secure that. So that it's a bit of a paradigm shift for most organizations that haven't had, and every organization now has developers of some kind, whether they're internal or outsourced, so they have to manage that software, which is now their customers' access. So every organization that we deal with has a digital aspect. They have an app, they have something that we interact with digitally. So that's one huge impact from a security perspective, that you're moving from kind of like when I first started out in IT, I was managing a server room and I had about 80 servers to manage, 60 different applications, email server, Oracle, a bunch of others, and it was quite easy to secure. And that's, Firewall did a lot of that. But now most of those applications are being built, not to mention the SaaS applications that you've got that, customers or organizations are using. They're also building their own applications in the cloud. They have to secure those applications. Think about the banks and the applications we use, or whatever it is, all those applications need to be secured. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the increasing compliance drivers across society. And it's not just, the big banks. It is now across, we've got various, I won't go into all the different regulations that we've got in the UK and across Europe, but there's quite a few that touch not just large enterprise, but also mid-market and even smaller organizations. So that's kind of the backdrop to, looking at cyber from a taxonomy point of view. But then we looked at, we broke them into 4. One is the more kind of, if anyone's been working in the cyber ecosystem for the last 20 years, like I have, you've got kind of corporate or workspace security, which would have been anything related to your data, your organization or employee data. And that could be, endpoint, that could be firewall, physical security, identity. So all of that data is being put into workspace security. That's one bucket. The next one is product security. So product security is the emerging term now for applications that organizations are building, and how do they secure that? Those are, you've got development teams, DevOps, that you've probably heard about, DevSecOps individuals. Those are the ones that are securing those applications because their customers and partners are using those applications. And they're not the same as those kind of other applications that, they're consuming from Oracle or Microsoft or whatever. They're actually building and they're responsible for that security. So that's something entirely different, and it's kind of a fundamental shift. Which I think the market has taken a long time to realise. The organisations have taken a long time to realise that this is something entirely new and you need different approaches.
Yeah, I think some people go, isn't that workforce?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely not. No. And so you've got, Wiz is a classic example of going in to look at cloud applications that you've, because that's not SaaS applications it's looking at, it's looking at your own applications that you've built. Something separate I wanted to split out is the SecOps space and SIM space, because it's evolving so quickly, and we're seeing divergence there between EDR vendors moving into SIM. We're seeing data pipelines being created and data lakes. So there's a divergence there, and it's important to keep an understanding or an eye on what's happening in the market. Enterprise organizations might be doing one thing, and mid-market doing something else. So having a foot in both camps is very useful. And then OT is always something entirely different. So OT has its own bucket as well, so that breaks it into the four.
And I think OT is it's a weird one actually, because it's a slower burn in terms of the volume side of it, but I do think that it's not going away. It's an old problem that is actually still growing.
Well, I think, given what we've just seen with a UK car manufacturer having to shut down its production,
huge loss. I mean, the impact is massive.
They're going after production systems because they know the cost of that. So that's just going to increase. So I think OT is just going to be ever more.
I think everyone's a target, and that isn't the most obvious one. R&D, any kind of manufacturing business. So it can't go away. I'm glad we focused, because I mean, cyber's massive, isn't it? There are so many different avenues to go down, and I think we've fortuitously found an easier groove in those buckets, I think. But we weren't too far away, I think. But I think it just needed a lot more crafting, didn't it, from your point of view?
Yeah, I think just so everyone gets on the same page. What is it? So you've got some kind of definition against it, and then vendors can almost self-certify or we are this. And that, or self-classify rather than self-certify.
I think it's just allowed us to sort of re-establish, though, that they are the right areas, because what was right 5 years ago may not be anymore. So
I think it changes annually sometimes.
Well, with AI, it's going to change very quickly. In a year, we're going to be having a very different conversation.
Stay tuned.
I know.
Version 2 next year.
Never finish that job, is it? Okay, so we're saying things are going to change in a year, thanks to AI and all the other big terms that we're hearing at the minute. And I think we see a lot, when it comes to December, January, everyone's getting ahead with their next annual predictions. Let's be honest, they're all usually pretty similar. No one's sort of going too mad with differentiating. But I'd like to look further, so on the theme of 10 years, and look 10 years out now. So don't worry, I won't hold you to any of these. And we know that obviously in the previous 10 years, a lot has changed. But can we make any predictions, go as big or as crazy as you want, but where do you think we're going to be from a technology perspective in the next 10 years?
Over to you for the technology bit.
Well, I think you're going to have some crazy ideas, but
Hayley's going to talk about black holes.
Yeah, I think we both want to talk about black holes.
I could talk about black holes, but I won't, because I don't have my little friend Brian Cox, and he's not my friend.
We'll get him on the next one.
Well, I think Bill Gates said that you overestimate what will happen in a year, but you massively underestimate what happens in 10 years.
I think it's because we literally block it off, don't we? It's like the brain shuts down a little bit to go, well, I'll fight what I can fight now. But it's too far to predict. And if we look back on 10 years, which we have done briefly on this, a lot's changed, but they're small incremental changes rather than big booms. So it'd be great to say, in 10 years' time, we'll all be floating around in our hydrogen fueled hovercrafts. By the way, if that happens, I want someone to pay me. So just saying. But I don't know. And I think maybe technology, it could be that something comes in from a compliance point of view, from a geopolitical or an economic point of view, that suddenly things will have to change.
I think the business models are going to be imploded, like SaaS, for example, which is around 20 years now, and everyone's got a SaaS model and SaaS metrics that you follow religiously. But the way AI is being implemented, it's going to change the economics and the value that you get and the outcomes that you want from it. And you're not going to just pay a license fee for that. There's going to be an outcome-based fee. So I think that's going to massively change. And that's probably underestimated how much that's going to change the industry.
And I think still we've got people lagging behind on the SaaS stuff or the subscription models. So, I mean, there's still people doing on-prem stuff. And I bet you there's still some licensing that's old-fashioned with some
perpetual.
So I think that'll be...
It will all coexist, but I think, given the ability of AI to radically... Like, if even a SaaS, do you need to go in and look at pre-built dashboards, or can you go and just ask in natural language what you want to get out of it? So that the SaaS itself is going to change, software will change. Obviously, attackers are now using AI, but the bigger one is quantum. For me, quantum.
Well, these are the two big buzzwords, aren't they?
Right, go on, explain what quantum is, Sam.
Yeah.
So
let's get your
Quantum
topic.
computing.
Yeah.
So there's a theory called computation. Well, I can't even say it. Computationalism.
Oh, God.
Which basically is saying that the universe is a giant quantum machine. The stars are the processes.
Go on.
The stars are the processes.
Okay.
The space-time continuum is the network, and the laws of physics is the hardware.
Oh, should we do a cartoon on that? I feel like it needs like people, like characters.
So what are we in that?
Yeah, this is
we're actually part of
follow-up conversation.
Yeah, I know it has to. Yeah. But we're part of the code. We're like in the Matrix. For those who've seen the Matrix.
Well, that was where my head was going.
But that's a simulation. But we're more like the agents.
The actual,
because we are part of the machine, and we're like a subroutine in the machine, and we're now aware of the machine, and maybe we can affect the machine. But the universe is actually, space and time is just information unfolding. So we are perceiving that as... is that
going to happen in 10 years, Simon?
Yeah.
No one pays him because he'll be down black hole.
But
we'll
obviously...
Get back together. I'll book you in 10 years from now.
But from a software point of view, we need post-quantum encryption or cryptography, PQC, because in 10 years, we'll all be able to decrypt.
Yeah.
So anything that we're sending out now that's encrypted with, our banking details or anything that's got IP, everything basically has an SSL certificate sitting in your browser that can be decrypted. So countries are storing that already so that they can decrypt it. And it's expected by about 2033, 34, 35 that we'll have quantum, the ability to break current encryption. So already organizations are looking at how do they move to post-quantum cryptography. So you're going to find all of the vendors, all the firewall vendors are coming out with modules. You're going to have new vendors coming in that have got super accelerated hardware and then new software coming in. So that's...
Can I just say though, will we have sorted our password problem out?
Probably not.
There's always space for that.
Yeah. I actually saw in a stationery shop the other day, I am not joking, a little notebook saying passwords on it, and it had inside of it email, and I was like, what on earth? I was going to buy one just for the sake of it and go, look what I've got.
Well, I would give that to my mother because she would actually use it.
I would use it, and I know I shouldn't. No.
Well, it's relatively secure, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's on your body.
Yeah.
You'd have to burn it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's better, in fact, than reusing the same password.
True.
Is that going to be our next branded merchandise?
Yes,
password booked.
But going back to identity is going to radically change within 3 years. So the current space of the governance on one side, and then kind of the detect and monitor and manage. If you think about zero trust, it's continual verification, validation, not just once a year. Let's do an audit of our access controls. It's going to be continual. So I think quite quickly identity is going to move to
AI identity consistently
changing. And it's going to be
Well, there's companies now that I'm aware of that are doing AI vulnerabilities, AI pen testing. So that's up and coming and building, because it's a continuous motion, isn't it? Rather than I think something's gone wrong, let's go and do it, like a retrospective scenario.
There's going to be a lot of M&A from the current existing vendors, and they are going to but then we're going to see new ones coming.
I mean, I think that's just going to always be the case, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but I see it's going to be quite quick, maybe quicker than we expect.
Yeah, good. Well, there's also no code. AI actually creating code. So that's a frightening concept as well.
Yeah, and machines have their own identity. So if our agents are all off booking us holidays and booking our credit cards, how do we control that?
Other questions to end today's podcast. We thought we'd keep it light, so we're going to do a this or that quick fire round. So the first one, this goes out to both of you, so I'll start with you, Simon. Would you rather be a vendor or a disty?
a dist you get that gets to work with the coolest vendors.
Nice.
Boom.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, me. What would I rather be, a vendor or a disty?
Doesn't work.
I suppose I've got to answer the question. No, do you know what? I have been a vendor, albeit a small one. But I love where we sit. I think where we sit is a great vantage point for technologies and good partners. So I just like being nosy and seeing what everyone else is doing. So yeah,
You do see a lot of cool stuff coming through as well.
great. You know,
It's kind of best of
it's a
both,
really
isn't
good
it?
vantage point. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think that was
Got
the
the
answer you had to
punishment.
give, but yeah, exactly. Okay, mix it up a bit. What is going to have the biggest impact on humanity? Quantum or AI?
Quantum. The reason being is that it can perform an unimaginable number of calculations simultaneously, so it could solve things that we can't solve with classical computing, such as folding proteins. So developing medicines, I think it's going to be quantum computing is going to be a game changer. So things like that, I think it's going to be better for humanity than cool AI robots I would love to chat with, but are really cool.
Great. Well, thank you both for your time and the conversation today. Hopefully everyone listening has found something interesting and maybe a bit thought-provoking and hopefully not all too scared of the Matrix now. But yeah, see you on the next one.
Thank you.